talking about. Come on. You got to get that other eye covered there. There we go. Dot that eye.
I already fucked it up.
Whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, the Tubs of the Club, brought to you this week by Snake River Stampede Whiskey, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that later in the show. Guys, this is Little Brown Stein Week. We are the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dallas Hammer, joined by brave, bold Brian Marceau.
Absolutely no other place I want to be in the world right now, man. The game of the week in the Big Sky. Damn, it feels like the Super Bowl at the end of September in some ways. Yeah, dude, the rivalry's back. This is the type of game that when Idaho came back, the Big Sky, these games ranked versus another ranked team like Montana. That's the games you had circled. That's coming this week. So glad to be here, dude.
And as always, well, mostly always, the man in Moscow holding it down for the underground, producer redacted, Marten Heemstra. Marten, how's it going?
Oh, good. It's another week in Moss. Another week. It's another Vandal football game. I'm sure we already know who I'm going to pick, so probably don't have to stay through pick them for my games. But please stay anyway and listen to Brian and Dallas preview the game this week.
Spoiler alert. Martin's feeling the Vandals this week, guys. We're just going to jump right into it. This is Around the Bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expeditions. If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, do not look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway. You could always check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. You might have missed your chance last summer, but just reach out to HRE. They'll help you out. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in the beautiful natural hot springs. And guys, I say this every damn week, hoping somebody's gonna do it. You can fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes, call in an HRE, you're going to handle everything else. grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. You can call them now 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Brian, as you're not a Montana fan, but you have some familial ties to Montana and have more familiarity with them than most of us do. So I'm going to let you take the wheel here. Head coach Beavis in year 69 or whatever the hell he's at, 141-41 at Montana. Little Brown Stein, third time since Idaho has dropped back since the Eck era. We don't look at the Petrino games; those were bad. Third time that the Little Brown Stein should be competitive in recent memory.
Yeah, and this game means a ton for both teams. So, hey, Jason Mayer in the comment section already brought up when I said, hey, this game feels like the Super Bowl already. Jason Mayer, is it also a must win for MSU? 2 losses equals 2 losses. And we'll get to that later. But look, this game has playoff implications written all over it for both teams. We've talked about Idaho extensively. Montana has a little more margin for error based off the type of schedule that they were able to get in the non-conference. But a marquee win like this for both teams, both these teams probably believe that they should compete for at least a top 8 spot, if not a top 4 spot. A win here is going to be among the best wins in the nation when we head into Selection Sunday at the end of the season. So phase 1, this game matters for both teams a ton. For Montana, this is, I think, both a same old and a little surprising compilation for the Griz, depending on what you're looking at, offensive, defensively. I'm going to start offensively, and the guy who makes things go for Montana is running back Eli Gilman. And look, hey, Gilman was all Big Sky last season. It was actually kind of astounding. The guy stayed at Montana. He is probably one of the stories, the good stories of Big Sky NIL, of obviously something had to happen because there's no way he did not get offers elsewhere. But Gilman on the season.
Don't forget his brother plays for Montana as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure that's not nothing. I don't know if he actually plays or is on the roster.
He does play. He has a couple of catches this year. Anyway, sorry, Brian.
Okay. The point being, Gilman is averaging 9 yards a carry, 44 carries for 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. He is less of a pass catching threat even than his brother based off total yards. But on the ground, it's impossible to say there's a better running back in the Big Sky than Eli Gilman, because it is, if you look through his stats now, hey, I'm talking about him in these type of superlatives because we've seen him play for 2 years. We know the guy is good. What has always been a limiting factor for Gilman is whether Houck will actually let him touch the ball. Houck has always been weird about letting stars touch the ball. But across this season, Gilman, like I said, 44 touches in carries in 3 games. It's around 15 per game. But he is a home run threat, and he is not a home run threat because the Montana Grizzlies have a fantastic O-line. The Grizzlies do not have a great O-line at all. This may be in the running for the worst O-line Idaho has seen this year. Might be hard to say worst because I don't know, Utah Tech. I'm not saying they lit the world on fire, but the Griz have
at least a lot bigger.
Yeah, the Griz have a lot of new guys on the O-line, and Montana rotates them a ton. They even rotate their centers, and which to me, you can rotate a ton because you have great depth and everyone's right about the same level, and that's how you avoid injuries. Or you rotate a ton because you are trying to find combos that are good, and there just aren't any fantastic ones. But that hits back to Gilman. If you're a Vandal and you remember Anthony Woods from those years making something out of nothing, well, Gilman's a better version of that so far this season and also in his career. So against Indiana State, absolutely, Gilman had spectacular outing. If he wasn't Big Sky Player of the Week, he was absolutely at that level. Against Indiana State, 13 carries for 120 yards. He had a 69-yard touchdown run. A lot of his yards came making something out of nothing. I'm kind of ignoring the D2 Central Washington game where he rushed 15 times for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. But against Indiana State, that was an example of if you do not wrap this guy up, he absolutely can make house calls. Conversely, if you look at North Dakota, 16 rushes for 82 yards, no touchdowns. That's solid, but absolutely if that's what the dude usually does, we're not talking about him in this type of way. So that was a game where the better defense was able to wrap him up. He wasn't able to make something out of nothing. But that's point number one for Idaho is Eli Gilman is easily the best player for Montana on offense. He is easily the biggest difference maker for the Griz and one of the biggest difference makers in the conference. But the O-line is not that good. So making sure that when this guy is going to pop at least a little bit, there's probably no way around that, but limiting Gilman making something out of nothing to like, hey, picking up a first down versus touchdowns and making sure that only happens a couple times. That's what the Idaho end is looking at. The Montana end is more looking at, yeah, we think we got the best guy in the nation and he's going to do something.
Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to any Vandals this weekend, but Eli Gilman is the best player that is going to be in this football game. The guy has accolades like crazy over his 2 years and now 3 games into his Montana career. But Brian, you talked about that offensive line. At left tackle and left guard, they're a little bit more set. I don't remember their names off the top of that, but both guys have 20 plus starts. Both guys have a lot of starts for the Griz. And then as you go down that line, it just becomes, again, a total crapshoot of guys that really haven't played a bunch, grad transfers in. They are a really senior-laden offensive line that just haven't seemed to figure it out. Really hoping that's an advantage for Idaho because this Montana team, you don't know what you're going to get. Again, they played a D2 school. Nobody cares. They were down two scores to North Dakota at home with 7.5 minutes to go. And Ayat did, drive them down. They kicked a field goal to make it a 1-score game and then scored a touchdown with a minute and a half left. They did get 3 first downs off of penalties on those 2 drives. So a little bit of luck helped there to win that game. And they beat the piss out of a terrible Indiana State Sycamores team. So it's hard to judge exactly what you're going to get out of this team. But for me, if it's not Gilman, obviously Idaho's going to be trying to stop the run. If you can bottle up Gilman, this isn't the most scary of offenses, but redshirt senior Michael Wortham, folks might hear that name and cringe and shudder a little bit. He was at Eastern the last handful of years. He was, I think, 23. I think he was second team last year. He was first team, mostly a special teams guy. It was kind of a gadget that was all over the field, but he scores all the time against Idaho. I think he threw for a touchdown and ran for a touchdown in 2023. Last year, he returned a kick for a touchdown against Idaho. And right now he's the leader of their passing offense. He's 14 catches, 215 yards and a touchdown. He's got 10 carries for 67 yards. He might not be the most skilled receiver. He's 5'9". He's not going to light the world on fire out there mossing dudes, but he's the guy that they're going to get the ball to Gilman and Wortham. And those are the 2 playmakers that you really have to worry about. They have a couple other decent receivers that are the more traditional, 6'1", 6'2", line up on the outside and be like, play pure possession type of receiver skills. But Brian, to me, you look at this offense, they're not getting a great push in the run game, which means they're not going to block super well in the pass game. To me, it's Keali a lot. That's if you can make him throw the ball, that's how you win this game. He is the reigning defensive. He's the reigning offensive player of the week in the Big Sky. Did have a pretty good game against Indiana State, but again, Indiana State allowed Montana to have 650 yards of offense. Like that was 2 very different classes of teams there. But to me, you look at it, and if you make Ayat have to throw a ton in this game, that I know Idaho's secondary is weak, but man, that's the matchup I'm looking for here is force him to beat you with his arm, and I don't know if he can.
Yeah, I want to just finish that talk on Wortham. Wortham he's got 210 yards receiving on the year, 1 touchdown. 120 of that came against Central Washington, and the touchdown came against Central Washington. So since then, I don't mean that as a put down, because that's another guy. Wortham absolutely can break plays,
and does against Idaho.
Yeah, but his he isn't a guy that is persistently doing this week in and week out. We know he's an All-American level kick punt returner, but his this one sounds not very hard. Don't punt it to him. But 2, some of his numbers on kick returns have not been like world beating at this point. Unclear if that means, hey, special teams is maybe not quite as strong overall for the Griz as you might expect for the last few years. We'll actually hit the other part connected to that in a second. But no, you talked about this for sure. There is no way that Court Dennison does not have the game plan of sell out to stop the run and make Ayat beat you. Ayat, hey, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks on the season, had his best game against Indiana State, did throw 2 picks against Central and 2 picks against North Dakota. He certainly can make mistakes. And I know we talked last year about how it took forever for Montana to make a quarterback selection. Had Houck done what essentially everyone in the nation would have done, Ayat would not have played. He clearly did not win the job last year. Now, Ayat clearly is the starting quarterback. They're not yanking him around this year, and maybe what we saw at Indiana State is a version of growth. But Idaho is not going to be out quarterbacked. At least when we heading into this game, before the first snap takes place, there is no one who has watched these teams play who's going to say, oh yeah, Ayat is the ace up the sleeve for Montana. No, you can expect Court Dennison is going to say, hey, Ayat's going to have to beat Idaho. I think Ayat's a solid passer, intermediate short passes. He is a threat on the ground, in particular in the red zone. He's not the runner that Joshua Wood is, but he absolutely can extend plays. That's something he can do. And he has quite a few rushing touchdowns on his career, which again, those are mostly he's used as a red zone rusher. So I guess that's what you're looking at on the Montana end. I think the Montana receivers are for the most part kind of like Idaho receivers. Are they solid? Yes. Are they as talented right now as they were the last few years? I don't think anyone would say that about either team right now. I think it's both teams in the receiving room look quite similar. They have guys who are stepping up. So, some guys who certainly look promising, but is there an All-American who's going to be suiting up as a wideout for either team heading into this week? No one's going to say that. So I guess that one, to put a button on what Montana's going to do on the offensive side of the ball, they're going to try to run, and Idaho knows this in advance, and we know that rush defense has generally been a relative strength of Idaho. So question's going to be, can Montana exploit Idaho on the ground the way, let's say, St. Thomas was able to some? Or if Montana's in 3rd and long, can Ayat just have one of the best games of his career? And I think from the Montana end, that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, I think you hit it on the head. If you're the Vandals offense, if you're the Vandal defense, it's force them to throw the ball. And yes, Ayat is, if you look at the box scores, sure, that he's trending in the right direction, and he is a young guy. He's only a redshirt sophomore. He's getting more and more snaps and more starts, and was again dicked around by Beavis last year. So this is kind of expected. That he's not going to be a world beater, but that's what Montana's been at with realistically the entirety of the Houck second regime has been inconsistent quarterback play because the guy hasn't been able to settle on one. Now that he's settled on one,
after his first 2 years,
in the last 3-4 seasons, it has changed a little bit, and maybe we see Ayat taking steps forward, but right now, man, you look at it and you think, I want the ball in his hands at the end of the game, because I feel pretty damn good if I'm a Vandal, hoping that guy's going to be throwing it all over the field.
Yeah, he threw that game-winning touchdown against North Dakota, but like you said, that drive got a bit of help. Mm-hmm. And this is not meant as a put down. The dude made the play, but if you have seen the game-winning touchdown, the corner just bit horrifically, almost instantly, and it was no different than playing catch by yourself.
Yeah, no, that's pretty spot on, Brian. Again, North Dakota should have won that football game, and we should be talking about this going in as Montana's beat a school nobody cares about, an FCS school that nobody really cares about, and then lost to a ranked FCS school. That's obviously not how it happened. They're 3-0. They're going into the 4th straight home game. Bye weeks, but 4th straight home game. Brian, it lines up pretty well for Idaho here, and we haven't even hit what I think is the best matchup.
Well, and hey, to be fair, let's pretend you're a Montana listener. What you might point to is like, okay, Indiana State sucks, but the Griz did murder them. And you look at Idaho. Look, we know that the Utah Tech game was never truly in doubt, but If you didn't watch that game and don't know that Utah Tech crossed midfield twice, what you're seeing is, well, look, Idaho played two FBS teams really well, but then like they didn't blow out the FCS teams, and Montana at least has done that on their schedule. So like just to acknowledge that, some of your production does matter and how you understand that. Before we actually get to the other side of the ball, I do want to acknowledge one thing. We don't really talk about betting lines on this show very much because I don't give a shit. But Montana's a 10.5 point favorite. And if you're a Vandal who bets, that sounds like free money. So, do with that as you will. It's astounding to me that the national perception of this game is that Montana is two scores better than Idaho, when legitimately Idaho hits one field goal, is 3-1. This is probably at worst like a 2.5 point game, or Idaho's favored, or if Montana does not get bailed out a couple times in the last drive, and then hey, make the correct play at the end. If Montana doesn't do that and they're sitting at 2-1 with a loss to the only good OK team they played, the perception is radically different. It's just crazy to me. Legitimately, 2 to 3 plays that mildly swing one direction or the other could radically change how this is perceived. And I'm done.
No, you're spot on, Brian. And that's FCS betting lines in a nutshell. Is it's mostly just people eyeballing things and saying, "Oh, Montana's 3-0, Idaho's 2-2, Montana, easy," and then it's not quite that. You had your hand up, Brian.
Yeah, there is one thing that we did not bring up, and I'm only bringing this up because I just feel like we kind of need to. Montana doesn't use Josh Gale that much in the passing game, but Josh Gale, tight end, he is transferred from UC Davis. He was a former All Big Sky tight end at Davis, then lost his job. He has 7 catches on the year for 100 yards. But if you were just talking raw talent, guys who have produced elsewhere, Josh Gale is a good Big Sky level tight end. It's just the same question for him as the same question we brought up with Wortham, which is the same question we brought up with Eli Gilman. Bobby Hauck is weird with guys who are theoretical star players, and in projecting what Montana is going to do, you don't know who's going to actually get touches in any sort of meaningful sense. If you're an Idaho fan, that is not bad news. If you're a guy who hosts an Idaho show, it's kind of weird to talk about. But the Griz do have talent on both on offense as at the skill positions. They had it last year. It's just, this is always one of the weird things with Montana is, are there guys who can deliver actually going to get the ball? And this is just the thing that Montana is going to have to handle on their own. We'll talk defensively. Is we already discussed, or I did, that dudes don't necessarily get touches. This is going to be a game that probably has fewer possessions than the Griz are used to, which can further contract how many touches a guy gets, or maybe how could change his mind. It's like, okay, we have 10 possessions. We actually got to give our guys the ball for once. We'll see.
On the, Brian, this also leads into, like, it is the start of conference play. We've been talking for 4 weeks now about, I think Idaho's probably got some stuff stashed away in the playbook that they weren't revealing until Griz week. Well, Montana probably has the same thing. Brent Peace has been around for a long time. I might have had some serious feelings about him potentially coming to Idaho, but the guy has been around for a really long time. It's not out of the question that they might have a little bit of that fuck shit going on, with it being the first conference week. It's a rivalry game, all the things. But flipping the discussion around, Brian, defensively, Montana lining up against Idaho, this makes me hungry. They still play that 3-3-5. It's still very, very, very aggressive. They still blitz from all over. They're maybe not the most sound in their gaps because they are that aggressive, but Alex Gubner's not walking off the sidelines and putting pads on. He is a full defensive assistant now. You look at this team, Brian, and they rotate like crazy. Their linebackers are probably their best skill group. 5 of the 6 linebackers in the 2 deep are in the top 8 of team tackles. This team just rotates like crazy. They cannot find like the people that they want to be like their guys. It is insane. If you look through the defensive stats, they have like 22 guys with 5 tackles or more. So that's not the exact number, but it's absurd how many guys are getting snaps and how many guys are just getting rotated in and out every few plays.
And the production to look at, because we've acknowledged the Montana schedule of D2, bad FCS, and a good FCS. Montana has not been a particularly strong on the ground defense right now in the Big Sky at like yards per rush. They're the fourth worst, 5.4. Only giving up 3 touchdowns, but Dallas is back in. Okay. Montana absolutely is vulnerable on the ground, and it's going to be interesting to see how Idaho chooses to go about that. It's been about 3 years now since Montana was a strong defensively, or this is the 3rd year, you'd say, since Montana's been as strong defensively as their reputation would suggest. By the way, former Vandal Diesel Wilkinson he's a starting strong safety for this Montana Grizzly team. So you'll hear that name. A couple of the names at linebacker that I'd pay attention to, Peyton Wing. He was all Big Sky second team in 2024 out of top 5 Portland State. But he's got 12 tackles on the year, but has 2 picks and 2 pressures. He's listed as the number 2 wideout at his position behind Elijah. I'm going to butcher that name. His last name's Tolbert.
It's Elijah Tolbert. He's the backup to Peyton Wing, but he's the guy leading the team in tackles.
Yeah, they're 2 deep for this week. He's listed as above Peyton Wing, but like full disclosure, Bobby Houck's 2 deeps are known to be a little bit more serious than what WSU submitted week 1, but not that much. Just keep in mind, those are probably 2 names that you're going to see for sure as guys who are productive. But Montana, like Dallas said, they rotate a ton of guys in the secondary, ton of guys up front. And I don't think it's because Montana feels like they have a bunch of like, hey, B-ish level guys who we just want to keep everyone fresh. I think it's because the Griz really still feel like they're looking for answers. And Exhibit A, that Central Washington game was pretty close until a little bit after halftime. And Exhibit B, the North Dakota game, where the Griz trailed, until the very, very end.
Yeah. I mean, again, Brian, there's 5 guys rotating in on the defensive line. There's 5 linebackers rotating in. Their secondary, they are playing what feels like 10 guys. It might be closer to 8, but this is a team that just has not settled anything. And that's because they didn't return anybody. They returned 25 players from last year's team. And defensively, they did not return a single starter. Offensively, they did bring, you can call Ayat a starter. Gilman was obviously a starter. They brought in guys that had starting experience. They have offensive linemen with starting experience. Defensively, this is entirely transfers. Other than a couple guys like Kellen Detrick as a starting edge, he's been there in Missoula, but not as a stud. This is, again, as you said, Brian, it's been a couple years now, but the vaunted Griz defense doesn't really exist anymore. This is a patchwork group of a bunch of guys that transferred from schools that a lot of them didn't play at, or there's a couple D2 transfers that transferred up. Kevin Marshall,
particularly big either.
No, they are not. This is a small team. Kevin Marshall in the comment section, DBs talk a whole bunch of crap, but aren't that good for the Griz. Man, that's true. Diesel Wilkinson, hey, respect for him being a Vandal for a year and a Spokane kid, but he couldn't get a ton of snaps for the Vandals, and he's now starting for the Griz. I don't know that he'd be starting in the Vandal secondary this year, and that's just what it is. You look at this team all across it, Brian, and I mean their linebackers are all 240 pounds. Their defensive ends, as they're not edge rushers, as they're obviously the 3-3-5, but their defensive ends are 240 and 250. This is not a big team, and that's kind of how Montana has always gone. Is kind of that uber athletic. I know Governor was a big dude, but they kind of go for those athletic guys that are just going to run around and make plays. But there's not a whole lot of that going on this year, Brian. Just not a lot of takeaways.
No. And yeah, so hey, Dave G saying, why are they favored? Well, we kind of covered that. It's just Idaho has 2 losses and Montana has none. That's pretty much, I don't have a better answer for you than that. Dallas, before we talk the Idaho keys to game, there is one thing that I think is worth acknowledging for Montana. This is an intangible, but this is just a fact of Bobby Houck coach teams. Like, hey, as much as we will make fun of Houck because he's annoying, Houck wins a lot of games, and the DNA of his team, even though there's some confusing stuff, he still wins games. So like his teams don't suck. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest keys when you are playing Montana is One of the things Houck is good at is, I don't know how to explain this because I'm not on his team, but he's a hardcore guy and the guys who play love him. And when the Griz are able to turn momentum on teams, they avalanche teams.
Especially in Wagriz.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the things where you look at, hey, we're talking about a team that we're not super concerned about them offensively just based off matchups. But you also might then look at and see, well, Montana scoring 43 points a game. Like, they obviously don't suck offensively, right? Well, hey, matchups are matchups. But that's one of the things the Griz do. Like, Central Washington is a great example of this. It took them a little bit over a half to figure Central out. But then they just avalanched Central Washington. I don't know of a coach I've seen who's better at getting his teams to ride waves of momentum. Now, the inverse of that is they can also be a team that feels like they just can't get out of neutral. The key is to keep them there, because when the Griz start to turn momentum, I don't think there's a team in the Big Sky that's more dangerous at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when you look at the matchups of, okay, what is going to stop Montana from being able to turn that corner? We'll probably talk about that more on the Idaho end.
Yeah, Brian, even just last week against Indiana State, it's 7-0 midway through the first. Indiana State goes 4 plays, and it was a 50-yard broken play, but they tie it up. It's 7-7 right at the end of the first. Then Gilman scores. It's 14-7, and then all of a sudden, Montana scores again. The defense scores, and it's 56-7 starting to the fourth quarter. Like it just kind of happened like that. Now, I'm not saying Indiana State could have gone and won that game. I don't think there's any chance of that happening. But again, they allowed Montana to make some defensive plays. It was the first game this season that Montana actually had more takeaways than giveaways, and they took advantage of it. Again, that game was 56-7 at the end of the third, or maybe start of the fourth. I forget the exact when that touchdown was scored. If it was either right at the end of the third or beginning of the fourth, but regardless, that got away from Indiana State really, really, really fast. It was 14-7 to end the first as Montana scored with no time on the clock, and then it's 35-7.5. Just it is lightning fast, and we've seen it. Tom Kendall in the comment section, if you're Idaho, you cannot give Montana a 21-0 lead again. Like that's what it comes down to, is not making mistakes, because Houck's teams don't normally do that. They are usually really good on special teams. Defensively, yes, they have some broken plays and they miss their gaps, but that's kind of their thing, is they're going to be aggressive and just bet on themselves to make the play. It's a little bit more reined in than maybe Idaho was against St. Thomas, but this is not going to be a team that Idaho goes in and just runs over. Even if Idaho is better than them at every single position, Idaho plays a ball control offense, and Montana does a lot of the same thing. But this is not going to be a game Idaho goes in and wins 56-7, especially on the road. It wouldn't happen in the QB Dome either. This is going to be one of those like slobber knocker slugfests, and that's just what it's going to be, man.
Yeah, and hey, I want to talk the Idaho end, because Juice Master in the comment section, you guys should change the name of the show to Nerdfest. Juice, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, not is it a waste of time knowing what we're talking about? I guess, but anyway, so before we talk the Idaho end, we got to talk about vandalgear.com, man. Vandalgear.com has been stepping up to the plate with new Vandal merch. Can't get it anywhere else. Things like the Fightin' Tater shirt, $25 there versus $17,000 at home field. You've got the 50th Kibby Dome anniversary shirt with the Grumpy Joe and the gray stripe across the chest. You got the Home Sweet Dome shirt. Like, no matter where you look, Home Field has the best Vandal apparel. It's called Pacific Custom Sportswear. It's Vandal owned and operated for over 25 years. They do sports apparel like this, but hey, they do stuff with local businesses and other orgs too. So look, you can work with them to design a logo. You can bring your own logo if you want, and they can do shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies. Essentially, if it's apparel, you name it. Get a hold of Jeff at vandalgear.com from Pacific Custom Sportswear.
Again, vandalgear.com. Love you guys. Love seeing the 50th anniversary with the gold shirts with the gray and white stripes. For those who don't know, the Vandals broke those out at the last home game and then petitioned to wear them for the Little Brown Stein game. And Idaho is going to be rolling in the monochrome Pride gold pants, throwback gold jerseys. Now the helmets are black and have a Idaho State outline with Vandals across it. I don't necessarily love that. It's not as unique as a lot of the things that have been going on this year. Other teams have done that. Boise State, unfortunately, has done it. It's cool. For me, I'm like, hey, whatever. Cool. It's a sticker. It'll be gone in a week. If you loved the Fighting Taters, hated the Fighting Taters, same thing here. It's a 1 week. Hey, we're showing off the state of Idaho. It'll be cool. It'll be cool to see it on ESPN too. But Brian, keys to the game for the Vandals. Man, it's a lot of the same stuff as we talked about last week. Now, this is again a much better matchup for Idaho, but
infinitely better matchup for Idaho. Like I know if you listen to the first half, you might think we're like hardcore into Montana. They're a good football team, but no, dude, this matchup is radically in favor of Idaho compared to last week. And remember, Idaho lost by 3 damn points with a missed field goal. So, first one. Montana wants to run the football. They have an electric running back without a very good offensive line. Idaho has been very good at stopping the run against virtually everyone. St. Thomas, look, you 1 point to St. Thomas, and the coaches themselves have been open saying, yeah, that was a discipline issue. We feel that's resolved. I think if you watch the last 2 weeks of Idaho football, you would accept running the football, defending teams on the ground. Idaho has resolved the issues they had against St. Thomas, whether it's Utah Tech crossing the 50-yard line twice or San Jose State. They had essentially one run, and if Zach Crotzer wrapped the dude up in the fourth quarter too, like, hey, we're talking about a 3-1 Idaho game. That's not the only reason Idaho lost. Just got to keep that in mind. Idaho, we know they have not been able to get to the quarterback that well on the year, but look, if you're a Vandal and I love when teams try to run the football against Idaho. Mm-hmm. And we know that's what Montana's probably going to try to lean on against Idaho. So phase one, that is an Idaho strength on Montana weakness matchup that 100% is going to favor the Vandals. And, we talked a little bit about the size of the two deep. Dallas, you talked a little bit about the O-line for Montana. I'm not saying they're teeny, but this is certainly not the biggest O-line Idaho's had to go against, and the Vandals have done fine against superior offensive lines multiple weeks this year. So I'll let you hit whatever the next matchup that you are paying attention to, but that's the first one that I think is going to matter a ton. Is one, can Idaho's relative strength make Eli Gilman look like he did against North Dakota, which was pretty damn ordinary? If you can do that, the Griz have to come up with some answers they don't want to come up with to win this game. And honestly, I don't know if there's a bigger matchup than that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're pretty spot on there, Brian. For me, man, I know this is a rivalry game, and after Idaho left for greener pastures that were not so green and then came back to the FCS, Montana has had recent history, obviously, but man, throughout time, Idaho runs away with this rivalry. It's not that much of a rivalry. It's only a rivalry because Montana has been decent in the last 20 years or 30 years, I guess. For me, it's run the damn football. That's what it comes down to. I don't care if it's Eli, if it's Art, if it's Nate Thomas, Carlos Matheny. We saw got 10, 15 carries his freshman year a couple years ago. I know Markai McKinnon hasn't seen yet, but those are the running backs that aren't the freshmen you'd expect are getting redshirted. I don't care who it is. Run the damn ball, even if it's Josh Wood on keepers, maybe some nice RPOs or even just a straight read option or speed option. Like, run the damn football. This is a team that you should be able to push around. They are not the same defensively as they have been. That for me is run the ball. You're gonna need to pop a big play here and there just to keep the crowd out of it. But man, if you're running the ball and pushing them all over the field, Griz is going to get pretty quiet pretty quick. The other thing for me offensively, a false start is going to happen, probably even 2, maybe 3. Montana has 6 false starts this year in 3 games. It's probably going to happen. Do not let it affect you. If you go in knowing, hey, we're going to fuck this up once or twice, it's a fact. It's going to happen. That stadium is insane. Don't let it spiral. Once one flag happens, we've seen it where Idaho just kind of spirals. If you can curb that and just, hey, move on, small mistake, whatever, just move forward, play the next play. I feel pretty good about this matchup, Brian.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to talk about there is if this is one of the things Idaho has in their advantage too. If Idaho is able to control possession like they have in most of their games, that's where you might get a team like Montana to start pressing offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's going to be important that if Idaho has those long drives, they have got to come away with points. And if you did not listen to the press conference from this last week, I just got to talk about Cameron Pope, not trying to put the dude down, but I mean, Ford made it clear that Pope is probably not going to see the field for a while, if the rest of the year. Keep in mind, they still went with Pope on that kick because they've seen the other guys in practice. So Idaho probably doesn't want to have to rely on the kicking game. One, just because we know the Vandals have not done that well kicking at all. If Forsman's taking the kicks, which we expect he's going to be the starter, if he has it straight away, okay, maybe left side, okay. But again, the kick Pope missed last week was from the right hash. I do not think it's an accident. I mean, Coach Ford was open saying he went with Pope from the right hash last week because of what they've seen out of Owen Forsman in practice. So just keep that in mind for the kicking game. If it's straight on or from the left hash side, Idaho probably feels more comfortable. If it's from the right side, they probably don't. The big deal is maybe Idaho needs to do their best to not rely on the kicking game at all. So that's part one. Part two is I want to look at Joshua Wood for a second. You talked for a second, Dallas, about how you want Idaho to run the ball. And look, that's what Idaho is. Even in the games where Joshua Wood passed at the most he's passed the entire season against San Jose State last week, Idaho still ran it significantly more than they passed the ball. That's who this team is. But I do want to kind of look at Joshua Wood uniquely because, hey, Dallas, who does Idaho play next week?
Well, it's a team that we lose to quite frequently, at least have in the historical 30 years. I think it's bye week. I think.
Yeah. If there's a week that Joshua Wood can maybe rush the ball a couple more times, I'm going to say this is the week that, maybe we can do that. He's got an extra week to recover. Yeah. And just the other thing I want to point out with Wood is Idaho did rely on Joshua Wood to pass the ball on fourth down a couple times against San Jose State, which is to say we've seen him get a little more dialed in each week. I think this is going to have to be a Joshua Wood game. That doesn't mean he passes it 40 times. That's not who Idaho is. But I think running the ball, probably would I be shocked if Joshua Wood is leading the team in rushing by a large margin in this game? No, I would not be shocked with that at all. Would I be shocked if Joshua Wood was closer to 30 passes like he got against San Jose State versus like the 25-ish he got the previous 2 weeks? No, I would not be shocked at all. Joshua Wood has been kind of described by Ford and kind of self-described himself as a guy who stays level in a good way, a guy who probably thinks himself as a gamer. There's no way that Wood doesn't think of this game as, a place where he can really put his footprint on the Big Sky season, because everyone already knows what a win means for Idaho. So I guess Joshua Wood offensively is the other guy that we know he's going to be a big name every week, but Joshua Wood, in the same way we talk about Eli Gilman for Montana, that's what Idaho has as their guy who aced up their sleeve. Virtually no team is going to outmatch Idaho at that position. That's Joshua Wood. He came here to win games like this.
Exactly. 100%, Brian. I think we've hit just about everything we can from the keys from Idaho's perspective. While you start getting your drink ready, if you're Montana, this is the one thing that scares me. Montana historically plays pretty smart football. They use the environment. They're conservative enough to not screw things up. And they're 18-3 in night games in Griz over the last 20 years. That we all know how Idaho has fared recently in night games. And Brian, I know that you and I are on different ends of this because you love the night game. I hate the night game. I hate the night game with a little bit of that trauma. Well, you go into Griz and they're 18-3 at night. That makes me very nervous. This is going to be a close one. But we're going to get to the score prediction a little bit later, Brian.
Okay. Before that, we got to talk about Snake River Stampede Canadian Whiskey, which I expect this is something I'm going to be reaching to during and after the game. One of the best buys in Idaho State liquor stores. Snake River's got two options: your entry-level Stampede or your small batch 1915. Both are 3-grain whiskeys. Both had double barrel finishes. Your Stampede is finished in Oloroso sherry cask. Your 1915 is aged an additional 2 years, then finished in ex-Canadian rye whiskey cask. You cannot go wrong either way. These are the number 1 and number 2 Canadian whiskeys available in the state of Idaho. Grab yourself one today.
Guys, that takes us to picking the Big Sky. Thank you again, Snake River Stampede. Last week, Brian and I clean sweep 10-0. Marten went 8-2, which we're going to call a clean sweep anyways, because we know he's not picking the Griz. And again, it gets a little bit of that Vandal fanboy in him. So, Marten, you're right there with us. Guys, this is finally the best part of the Pick'em season. We're finally on to just the big sky games. We don't have any more Idaho State versus who gives a shits. It's finally conference opponents for the most part every single week. So with that stated, we go to the game of the week to start things off. Idaho State at Northern Colorado.
And I'm excited to talk about this one because I know Brian is absolutely amped, as you can tell from his facial expressions right now. I'm going to go with Northern Colorado is going to beat Idaho State.
Northern Colorado looks like they might be the best of the bottom half of the Big Sky, which that's a good story because we want teams to be interesting. We know Idaho State, they at least have some talent. Davis Harsin is going to be a starting quarterback for them this week. He's a little bit of a dual threat, but also like what that means with Cody Hawkins' offense, real question. Now, here's where the matchup is interesting. Northern Colorado has played pretty dang good defense, but they still suck offensively. Idaho State sucks defensively. So this is kind of the matchup dream for Idaho State. Is anyone who can't score is going to be intriguing. I think you have to go with Northern Colorado here because look, Northern Colorado, we talked about the perception of Idaho and Montana based off like one play goes different. Dallas, if Northern Colorado does not get screwed at Colorado State, they're sitting at 3-1. One's a D2 win, sure, but then one's an FBS win too. We're nationwide. The FCS opinion of them is going to be, are these guys hunting for a playoff spot now? Now, worth noting, Northern Colorado needed OT to beat a shitty Houston Christian team last year. So I don't want to let the train go off the rails here. But Northern Colorado has been absolutely steady. ISU's been all over the place, and their O-line was thrashed by Southern Utah, who has not looked that great elsewhere. So Northern Colorado, man.
Yeah, give me that's all three of us taking Northern Colorado this week. I'm not saying Brian, that is a good point. They're like, hey, if they beat Colorado State, then we're looking at your only losses in overtime to a ranked South Dakota school on the road. I'm not saying this is a playoff caliber team in the Big Sky, but this is a team that does seem to have turned the corner from complete dumpster fire to at least are going to be competitive in most games. When then you're taking on another team that's in the bottom half of the conference. Idaho State's going on the road. Man, give me Northern Colorado in that defense. I just feel like they're going to get to Little Harsin and Little Hawkins. There's a couple folks in the comment section, Rob Maurer and Patty Frakes for the most part saying ISU. Most of the rest of you saying Northern Colorado. So we'll see what happens. This game probably isn't going to matter much in the long run. Both of these teams aren't going to go anywhere. But
it's weird to think that both of these teams have reason to not turn away. Although Idaho State, look, you guys talk, like people in the comment section talk about Idaho State playing the two FBS games close, not close the way Idaho did, where Idaho should have won those two games. But the thing that I'm looking at is they look terrible against Southern Utah. And Northern Colorado, I don't think they're going to finish above 500, but I think they're going to be a team that's more annoying to the better teams in the conference than you'd guess. I don't yet think that about Idaho State.
No, I would agree with that. I think that the rebuild for Northern Colorado is closer to that. Like, hey, we're going to at least put a scare into some teams. Idaho State, I think you come to the final game of the season and they're still probably going to get blown out 70-21 by the Vandals. But that's not what we're talking about today, guys. We are moving on.
This is a must-win for ISU, though.
Yes.
ISU follows up with Montana, Montana State, NAU Davis.
Brian, is it must-win or can't lose?
Either's fine.
Great. Patty, we're hitting this one just because you showed up. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't care. Eastern Washington at Montana State.
Montana State. I think it could get ugly.
I don't know about that. Montana State actually looks kind of vulnerable. They're quite ordinary on the ground so far this year. And look, hey, I know schedules are what they are, but Montana State had a couple lower FCS games to counteract, like their FBS, their Oregon plus South Dakota State start. The Cats are a very ordinary team on the ground right now, as in like middle-ish of the Big Sky, as in they're not producing as well as Idaho on the ground. So I think Montana State's going to win. I do think Eastern has looked at least a little more promising in the last few weeks. The kind of the weird story for Eastern is Nate Bell is essentially the entire offense now. He's a dual threat quarterback. There's virtually nothing Eastern does offensively other than Nate Bell on the ground and through the air.
Jared Taylor did practice this week.
That'd be lunacy to go with Jared Taylor to me for the last 2 weeks, but after what we saw the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to go with Montana State. I just don't think yet this is a brain dead, hey, the Bobcats are going to win by 1,000. Eastern's at least been tough for a couple teams, and Montana State they scored 17 against Mercyhurst. Hey, they're 2-2, right? We're going to talk about Sac State later. Dallas, after seeing two teams play Mercyhurst, who are you more concerned about? Idaho doesn't play MSU, but hey, if they did, who are you more concerned about? Montana State or Sac State?
I mean, I'm certainly more concerned about Montana State. Sac State still, I think I am the loudest Sac State person on this podcast because I believe in Brennan Marion and that offense, but no, Idaho would put them in the ground pretty fast, and I think we'll put them in the ground pretty fast. Montana State still has a little bit of that fear in me. I know they did not play great against Mercyhurst, Brian, but again, double overtime loss to South Dakota State. Yes, they got killed by Oregon. Here's Patty Frakes in the comment section. I could actually see this being competitive. Eague defense is stopping the run better than they have in a long time. Cats want to run the ball. I think it'll be a game for at least a little while. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I definitely, as he says, the both teams the Eags are doing better stopping the run. Cats want to run the ball. It's probably going to make this a little bit quicker game, a little bit shorter possessions. All of that to say, man, I you cannot convince me to pick Eastern Washington going into Bozeman. There is nothing about that team that has screamed out to me as, okay, they lost close to a bad Northern Iowa team. I always do that. NIU. It's UNI. They lost close to a bad, quote unquote, Northern Iowa team. They crushed Western Illinois, who is essentially complete dog shit.
Western Illinois might be the worst team in the MVC/Big Sky.
Yeah, by a good margin.
Actually, no. Western Oregon's. I forgot. I saw Western Illinois is in the OVC now.
Yeah,
which was the right call.
They beat Valpo for it's their only win so far, and Valpo is probably the worst team in the Pioneer League. But we're spending too much time talking about shitty football teams. Guys, I just don't see it. But Captain N58 in the comment section very quickly. Sacks quarterback switch is paying dividends. Jaden Rashada was all hype, or like Coach Marion's headwear, all hat, no cattle. That's what happens with big time recruits that are dropping down to the FCS. They're typically falling here for a reason because they were a big name in high school and that development just never took off. But we are at 52 minutes. We're trying to hit our hour mark. I know we're not going to, but we got 4 games left, guys. Another barn burner. NAU at Portland State.
NAU.
PSU's top 5 Portland State is averaging 5 points a game. This is going to be I'm not kidding. They're averaging 5 points a game on the year. Northern Arizona is going to win this by 1,000.
Yeah,
this might be Dallas's blowout game. The special type of blowout game.
The prolapse Danis game.
Yeah.
That's going to be this one. Everybody here saying easiest pick NAU. Yeah, I mean, I get that it's in Hillsboro, so NAU's got to go play at that high school field. But
yeah, there's no way Portland State can off the Jacks.
No, they could jack the offs maybe. Coming off of they lost to Hawaii by 20. Yeah, it's an FBS school, but they got killed by North Dakota. They got killed by BYU. Yes, FBS school. They got killed by Tarleton State. I think if you're going to pick one team that is just circling the 0 wins this year, man, it's Portland State. I don't think they're going to be favored in a single game this year. If Barnum is still the coach by the end of the season, Portland State at Northern Colorado, man, that is going to be gangbusters. But we're all in agreement. It's NAU. This is going to be a bad game. Don't watch. Cal Poly at Sac State. Another real barn burner here, gentlemen.
Sac State. The brick wall's talking for me now.
Nice.
Yeah, Sacramento State, Cardell Williams is the starting quarterback now over Jaden Rashad, referenced in the comment section here. Talked about a bit on the Big Sky podcast network out of conference grades episode last week. I think Sac State is a team to watch. Is like, hey, maybe they're not quite a shit show yet. They get a few weeks to really get it together. This is like their third game in a row. That's essentially a walkover for them. So yeah, Sacramento State. I guess the thing to pay attention to is how Cardell Williams continues to pass the ball. Last week, Sac State had their best game on the ground by a lot. Now, they were not playing world beaters, but still, with Sac State, we're looking at, hey, is there some continuity building? And that's what you want to do in these theoretical walkover games. Sac State.
Yeah, in the comment section, everybody's picking NAU and Sac State, except for Jason Mayer. Cal Poly wins. Sac State loses their quarterback and the game and the season. Rob Maurer says Cal Poly will give them a game maybe for a while. Sac overrated. I'm going to go back to, look, Cardell Williams is maybe not going to light the world on fire, but is performing significantly better than Jaden Rashada did. That offense at least moves a little bit. They've figured out the balance of the run game and the running backs that they wanted to use. Sac State still, yes, they're 2-2. But their losses are to FBS Nevada by 3 in a game that they almost won. Again, that Rashada threw an awful pick at the end of the game that really kind of sealed the deal on that one. And then a loss on the road to South Dakota State. This is a team that has 2 losses against teams that should have beaten them. And then they put it up pretty good on Mercyhurst at the end. And they crushed Central Arkansas. Cal Poly has already won their Super Bowl this year. They are in full mail it in and hope for better weather come January, February, March, because again, they've beat San Diego, so they're not going to be favored in a single game the rest of the year. Give me Sac State. Guys, Weber State at UC Davis, the fighting Colby Petersons.
You know what? I'm gonna go with I'm gonna throw something in there and not be boring this week for pick. I'm gonna go with Weber State.
Yeah, that's a mistake. Weber State has a really atrocious secondary. Quarterback Jackson Gilkey has thrown the ball to the wrong team 9 times this season. And even if you look narrowly at the wins against 2 not very good FCS teams, McNeese State and Butler, Gilkey has thrown 3 touchdowns and 4 picks. So I know he's theoretically a rushing threat, but there's a ton of 2-2 teams in the Big Sky. Schedules are not all created equal, and Weber's bad this year. So no, UC Davis.
Yeah, unfortunately, Martin, I'm going to have to go with UC Davis as well. Love the energy, but as Brian said,
I'll shock the world and win this week.
I'm hoping for that, Brian Martin. I'm really hoping for that. Fuck UC Davis right in their stupid fucking faces. But man, I couldn't pick them, especially Weber on the road in Davis. Man, like you said, Brian, they give the ball away too much. They've beat a bad Butler team and a mediocre to bad McNeese team. They got crushed by JMU and Arizona, both FBS schools. You expect to lose those games, especially in the ways that they did. But coming into conference play, there's nothing that has screamed out to me is like, hey, Weber's going to be feisty this year and really hang with the top end of the conference. Yes, UC Davis has maybe underperformed for what people expected, but they did put it up pretty good on Southern Utah last week. No reason for them not to rattle off a couple wins here against Weber State and Cal Poly next week before getting into a little bit more meat of their schedule. But that takes us, gentlemen, to the final game. We've already done the preview of it. Martin, this is your chance to give any final thoughts and your score prediction for Idaho at the Sheep Lovers.
I don't know who I should pick this week. It's kind of hard. I mean, Montana's a 10.5 point favorite, I think, at home. It's scary. It's a night game in Griz, whatever it's fucking called. If I said that right, I think I said it right. I know I'm still gonna go Idaho 28-24.
So Martin, I'm just bringing this up because you referenced it. This is the third line Idaho is going to be a multi-score dog in, and this is certainly not the best team that Idaho's a multi-score dog against on the season. So look, I'm going to go. I think I'm Idaho. Like, I mean, both these teams, Montana, you might say, hey, they've actualized a little bit more. But there's reason to think there's some chinks in the Montana armor. Just like if, hey, Idaho's got 2 losses, there's some chinks there as well. Not trying to pretend that's not the case. The matchup, though, look, Idaho almost came up with a W on the road in the worst offense defense matchup they're probably going to have the entire year, and that's not Montana. Montana's not gonna dice Idaho through the air the way San Jose State was able to. One, they don't have the play caller to do it. Absolutely, I would take Craig Stutzman over Brent Peace 1,000 out of 1,000 times. But 2, I don't think they have the quarterback or the receivers to do it either. So I like the Idaho matchup. And I like the fact that Idaho's responded pretty well to some of the disappointing outings of the season. Like, for example, look, after the St. Thomas game, Idaho came out with a win, said that, hey, that didn't feel like a win, but it was. Then the next week, Utah Tech crosses the 50-yard line twice. Then this last game, even though we know the Idaho secondary struggled against San Jose State, there's no other way to talk about that. One, Idaho should have won that game. And 2, Idaho was able to impose their will offensively, and then that made San Jose State press. San Jose State press uniquely had an offense that could do that. Montana does not. So if Idaho's able to impose their will on the offensive side of the ball, and there's no reason to think they won't, I think what you look at is Montana then might press and look like a team that is just stuck in neutral, at which point it's Idaho's job to not do the Griz a favor and turn the ball over, stuff like that. So I'm going to go Idaho 28-20. I think Idaho's going to carve a decent lead. I think Montana's going to be able to come back a little bit at the end, but I think this is the matchup is the game. And Idaho has performed very well in poor matchups against better teams this year. The strength on weakness matchup Idaho gets on both sides of the ball, the not that great Montana O-line, Idaho stronger on the ground defensively, and then Montana not particularly great at stopping the run at all this year, and that's what Idaho wants to do. It favors Idaho so long as Idaho does not get in their own way. So, Vandals.
Yeah, hit in the comment section real quick. Rob Maurer, 24-21 Idaho. Crew had 76. Vandals will win at Wajiz. James T.A. Vandals by 100. Bart Holt, 34-21 Idaho. Tom Kendall, 27-23. Tom, I'm going to give everybody a quick little spoiler. That is actually the score I was going to pick. Ross Warren, 28-27 Idaho. Steve Kurtz, Vandals win by more than 2 scores. Jason Mayer, 31-17 Idaho. Jizzmaster, 40-14 for the Griz. James Jacobs, Idaho by 2 scores. Let's see, keep going here. Colin Hughes, 31-24. Cap Dan, 58-2014. Again, a lot of folks picking the Vandals on a Vandal podcast. Crew had 76. If Dennison has the damn defense right, it might be a 3-score win. Turner Webb prolapsed anus for the Griz. Burl Trout, 35-24 Griz Stadium overrated. Ron Lowney, Griz 31, Idaho 17. Ron, you're going to get blocked if you keep doing that. Wow. But guys, I look at this. Look, they've got a hell of a kicker. Ty Morrison is maybe the best kicker and punter in the FCS, much less in the Big Sky. I do think the Griz are going to have the advantage when it comes to kicking field goals. Outside of that, they've got their stadium. Their running back is better than ours. Yeah, that's really about it. When you're looking at it, I'd take Idaho's quarterback. I'd probably take Idaho's receivers. It might be a little bit more of a wash there. You take Idaho's offensive line every damn day. Again, same 5 starters all year long, and they have done a pretty damn good job of it. Go ahead.
Well, just another way I'd look at it too, just to kind of buttress your points, Dallas. Hey, like flip the schedules. If Montana has Idaho's schedule, is this a 4-0 team heading into this week? No reason to believe that.
No, this team is lucky to be 2-2 probably if Montana played this schedule. But you look across their defense, man. You favor Idaho at almost every position battle. Yes, you're going on the road. Yes, you're going to a very experienced coach that has done this time and time again. It's a night game. All of these awful things. But I got to go with the Vandies, man. 27-23, taking the Little Brown Stein back home. This just feels like, I mean, if you've been watching the games, this Idaho team matches up really well with this Montana school. Now, again, who knows what the coaches have in the playbooks come first game of the conference season. But right now, you look at the resumes of these teams and what they've put out on tape, man, go Vandals. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm wild to me. Hey, separate point. Like, this is just, I don't know how listeners have felt about this. I don't know how you guys felt about this. I've been both amped and anxious about this game since Sunday. I had to get over Saturday, but since then, the game just means so damn much for Idaho, especially Idaho. Look, it means for a lot for both, but for Idaho, this is also, and hey, head coach Thomas Ford, just like Jason Eck kind of really announced he was here in the FCS, beating Montana at home. Same thing for Thomas Ford. Idaho picks up a win here. And what everyone's been saying about Idaho is like, hey, dude, 6 points from being 4-0 against two FBS teams, guys. Like, that's nothing. A win here justifies all that. Now a loss, and suddenly you're looking at, okay, well, maybe this is just an Idaho team, but not quite clicking is who they are, being good, being, playoff-ish, but a team that's very good and just things don't quite click. That sounds like a fringe playoff to certainly not skipping the first round of playoff team, and that's who you are. But a win here justifies the faith I think you have in this team, Das, faith I have, that we think some of the issues the team has and why they're not 4-0 are both correctable, and many have been corrected. This is the game that Idaho can show. Like, yeah, that's where they are. This game is going to mean a ton for Idaho. Like I just said here, this is going to be a marquee game for both teams' playoff resume. Might be one of the, other than South Dakota State and North Dakota State, legitimately the winner of this game might have one of the 3 or 4 best wins of any team in the nation for their playoff resume. It means a ton for both. It does mean a little bit more than Idaho because schedules are what they are.
Yeah, for Idaho, it's not a must win, but you do need to win this because you didn't load your schedule up with a bunch of cupcakes like Montana did. Like, they're playing Sacred Fart in the middle of the season, like sandwiched around Cal Poly and Sacramento State. You're bringing in Sacred Fart. Great job, guys. Really killing it. But again, when you sell so many tickets, because what else is there to do in Montana? Nothing. I can't blame them for bringing in a D2 school, bringing in Indiana State, bringing in Sacred Fart. Like,
well, in fact, is you probably need 9 FCS wins to be able to skip the first round for a fact. Yeah. And the Griz have more margin for error right now than Idaho has. If Idaho's going to finish 9-3, they've got 1 loss left on the schedule. I really don't want to use that loss up this week. I'd rather have that for later in the year where you think about injuries, but we're not worrying about later in the year right now. We've got the game of the week in the FCS. It's going to be on ESPN2. It's under the lights. I just think this matters a ton for Idaho, and like a win. It's just hard for me to stress how much a win here makes Vandals forget about a couple of those losses and lets the playoff committee forget about those, 3-point losses and interpret those as, no, that was a good team coming together. But you do have to come together and get the W's.
Exactly. So, gentlemen and ladies, if you like what we're doing, if you hate what we're doing, if you don't tolerate what we're doing, whatever you feel towards us, patreon.com/Tubs at the club. Less than a cup of coffee to come hang out. Our game thread is going to be popping off this week. It was popping off last week, being, again, the first true road game. Obviously, Wazoo is a road game, but there's a good portion of Vandals there. Not as many Vandals showed up to San Jose State. There will be a decent Vandal following over in Missoula this weekend, but again, not a lot of folks are going to be able to make it there because it's pretty hard to get tickets, pretty hard to afford. So if you're looking for a place to just hang out and talk Vandal football, man, patreon.com/Tubs at the club. You get into the Only Tubs Discord, get to hang out in the game thread, get to talk and panic with everybody else, and then, again, talk any other Vandal sport throughout the rest of the time that you're subscribed, because we got threads for everything. So, gentlemen, ladies, patreon.com/Tubs at the club. With that said, we will see you all for an instant reaction, possibly after the show, possibly Sunday. Who knows? We will figure that out because it's 7:15 Pacific time on ESPN2, which means that game probably won't end until close to midnight because of extra TV commercials and just general bullshit of being on ESPN. Game should hopefully move pretty quickly because of both teams' tendencies to run the ball, but it will be a really late night. We might see you then. We might see you the next morning. Regardless, fees up and go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Oh boy, I already fucked it up again. Go Vandals.